All right. Welcome to Philosophy of Order. We are going to cover the abstract and we are going to cover how non-material things become material and how non-material things are actually controlling the material world. When I first started philosophy class, I was told that metaphysical things cannot control or have any bearing on physical things. And I always thought that was silly. I said, who made that rule up? It seems like a bad rule. And I was always told that dreams were fake. And I think I told you before, me and my philosophy professor, we had a long debate about it. I still love Dr. Flynn, but we had a long debate about it. And we're going to really dig into it today. Okay, so the abstract realm. So if you remember, we went over in the philosophy of order and the cosmology of it, you had the existence itself. So we went back, we did a deep dive on that. And then from that, we have the womb. We did a deep dive on that. And then we had consciousness or the father. We had a deep dive on that everybody enjoyed the Lion King half of that, I see. And then you know, um, and then we're back to the womb again, which is the abstract. Okay. The abstract realm is one of my favorite topics in the philosophy of order when we talk about these kind of things. Um, the main reason is because the philosophy of order hinges on two things. One, everything has a spirit, which is metaphysical. Two, everything has a matrix, which is both physical and metaphysical. And so we're going to dive really deep into this. So, real quick, a story about a scientist named Michael Levin. Okay. So, ever since I was, given this philosophy, I've just been trying to put it into words for years. That was like the main thing. So originally, I couldn't explain any of this. My first book I ever wrote, actually isn't even out right now because it was such a horrible understanding of the philosophy of order that it's embarrassing. But I was really trying to understand it, and it's only through research and that you can understand certain things, in my opinion, or through deep meditation. And so, one of the things I was trying to figure out is how can I prove to people that something that is metaphysical, how can I prove this scientifically, and this is abstract exploration, can not only manifest into the physical, but controls the physical world? Like, how do I do that? The closest I've came to that is everybody knows my thylacine example. That's why I love it so much. That's the closest I've ever come to showing people like, no, this has real physical world consequences. And I can show you that a spirit precedes the physical. And, I've done it through convergent evolution. Michael Levin has done that very scientifically. And I was so happy to find him. And he did it through Xenobots. And it's funny because when I first found Xenobots, I didn't know it was Michael Levin. I hated them. I actually still kind of hate them, but I hated Xenobots. I don't anybody if you've heard of Xenobots, please raise your hand. So that's okay. So yeah, Xenobots, just to tell you briefly, Xenobots are artificial cells. That's the best I can explain to you, like mechanical. And so I had this deep fear about it. I don't want to go too much into that. But point is, when I finally did go into Xenobots and Michael Levin, I actually found that in the philosophy of order, he didn't only have the same conclusion I had, but he had done what I could not do, which is prove it scientifically. And that's why it's important for everybody to realize we own no conclusions. I was told a long time ago in English class that everybody came out and said, I had a book about a young boy who was a wizard, who was abused, who went away to a school and learned how to be a wizard. but you weren't the first to get it out. You understand? You think you own these ideas, you think you own these spirits, these characters, but you don't, right? And there's other people working on these things. For me, that brings me great comfort. For some people, that brings them jealousy. But I find it pretty awesome because I'm just trying to pull all the puzzle pieces together. So let's go deeper. So this presentation, I use Michael Levin here, and so I will be in the group sending y'all some lectures from him. And now I will warn you, hearing it straight, hopefully this helps you. But as y'all probably found from the last video I sent, sometimes the terminology can make a lot of this hard to understand. So I try to explain it in a way that is easy for me to understand, so therefore it's hopefully easy for you to understand. But I will send it anyway, because all of you are highly intelligent, but just know the vocabulary might throw you off. Okay, so physicalism, right? We spend a whole course on this. So I'm going to go pretty fast here. This physicalism equals the belief that everything real is physical. This idea collapses once we notice something strange.
You get brown eggs, please.
Math tells um physics what to do, not the other way around. Okay? So, mathematical truths like the number E, prime numbers, or geometric theorems, right, stay true no matter how the universe changes. This means physical reality rests on something deeper and non physical. Okay? So why is that controversial? If math shapes reality, then physics isn't the base of existence. It's just a surface. Okay? So it's super important to understand this part of it. Um, Super important to understand. Oh man, I need something to drink already. All right, so the number E. I want to break down what these things mean. Again, the terminology can get you lost, but I got to break down the terminology so you could fully understand the relevance of what we're talking about right here. E is a special number that never changes. Okay? It's like how 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's always true. Prime numbers are numbers that can only be divided by 1. I know y'all like this is elementary, but I got to go through this. Prime numbers are numbers that can only be divided by 1 in themselves, like 2, 3, 5, 7. They never stop being prime, no matter what happens in the universe. Geometric theorems, right? These are shapes that follow rules that don't change, like how a triangle always has three sides. Okay? These shape rules always stay true. A triangle is a triangle is a triangle, in other words. Okay? So once you pick basic logical rules called axioms, math unfolds automatically. You don't choose the value of E or the distribution of primes, they fall out of the rules. These truths hold in all possible worlds that follow those axioms. Physical constants may vary across universes, but mathematical ones cannot. This is super important. So people always wonder, like, man, I wonder if there's a universe where the laws are different. That can happen. I wonder if there's a universe where the physics are different. That can happen. That can happen. But what can't happen is the foundation of those laws, which are mathematics to change. Like, you can't run into a universe where a triangle has four sides. And I know some people are saying, what? Like, how do you know that? Because then it's not a triangle. This kind of goes back to our essence and collection of attributes. If it's missing one attribute that makes you you, it is no longer you, it is something else. What makes a triangle is what makes a triangle, right? These are abstract things. They're very real. They're more real than the physical things that we're seeing around us. Okay, moving forward. Axiom. Just in case you were wondering, like, can you explain axiom more? An axiom is a self-evident or assumed starting point used to construct a mathematical framework. You cannot prove axioms within the system because they define the system itself. It's like trying to prove using a scientific method that math is real. If that can put it in perspective for you. You can't because the scientific method presupposes that math is real. Okay? So they determine what kinds of structures and truths can exist within that mathematical universe. Once the axioms are fixed, the consequences are logically necessary and unchanging. Changing axioms means you are changing the entire system. Okay? Just as mathematics behaves like a realm of necessary truths, while physics looks contingent and fragile, spirits operates the same way. They operate in a realm of necessary truth. So, everything I just said about math in the philosophy of order, I would also say about spirits, collection of attributes that make something what it is. In the same way, and this is why I love what Michael Levin's doing because I can connect it to the philosophy of order very easily. In the same way that you cannot have what we call gravity without the math, is in the same way that we cannot have Jeremy without his collection of attributes. The physicality of everybody in here is beholden to an abstract realm, a metaphysical place. But we're going to go further into this. And so if you're ever trying to figure out where are the spirits at, like where is this place? They're in a place of necessary truths, what I just call the abstract. And so we're talking about, so when we talk about the abstract realm, right, um going from existence to the womb to consciousness to the abstract realm, we're talking about a place where every necessary possibility must exist, where all the fundamental stuff of reality is in. Okay, this is a real place. Okay, so let's give some examples. Cicadas' 13 and 17-year cycles match prime numbers, helping them avoid predators. Particle, be- particle behavior is determined by symmetry groups, mathematical structures that dictate what particles can do. Whenever we ask why something in nature happens, the explanation eventually ends up in mathematics. Biology and physics act like echoes of deeper mathematical patterns. So cicadas appear every 13 or 17 years, and both numbers are prime. Because primes don't line up with most animals' life cycles, predators rarely show up at the same time. This helps cicadas survive and reproduce. In physics, particles correspond to representations of symmetry groups. So they call them like SU2 or SU3. Okay. These groups specify um, allowed transformations, which determine particle properties such as charge, spin, and interaction types. Thus, mathematics constrains physical behavior at the foundational level. Okay. So, scientific explanations often reach a point where the underlying cause is mathematical. Equations, constants, or structural rules, biology, chemistry, and physics all rely on deeper patterns that math describes. Again, showing you proof that the physical world is reliant on the metaphysical world, on the abstract realm. That's why I was saying before, when we talk about consciousness, when we talk about the womb, when we talk about the existence, we're not actually yet talking about physicality, right? The foundation is not material. But if we're talking about the all, then it's included in that. But my point is, when you talk about the womb, consciousness, the abstract, these are the foundations in which the material world is um is resting on. Okay. Um, let's go deeper. So math in the universe, all right? Physics is dependent on abstract. Physics relies on math to express laws, but physics cannot explain why math is the way it is. Universe and math. Changing the universe can't change math, not even at the Big Bang. No matter how far you go back, it cannot change math. Therefore, math sits above physics in the hierarchy of explanation. If math is primary, right, physics might not be the foundation of reality at all.
What?
So keep that in mind as we're going through this. So mathematical truths live outside physical space. Physics depends on them, but math doesn't depend on physics. Therefore, physicalism, all that exists is physical, cannot be true. Okay? Now, I'm not obviously the first person to say this. Michael Levin isn't the first person to say this. Philosophers like Plato, right? Pythagoras, there's modern thinkers that say that these are not new ideas. But the reason why I'm using Michael Levin is because he is demonstrating ways to show this scientifically. And as you all know, I'm very interested in empirical information, though it's not the only way that you can receive information. All right. So the pattern space is orderly, not random. Scientists operate under this assumption. Otherwise, research would be impossible. Understanding one pattern can help reveal nearby patterns in this structured landscape. So let me go over that again. Remember what we say in the philosophy of order. A spirit is an essence, and an essence is a collection of attributes that make something what it is. That's a pattern. Okay? So the pattern space is orderly, philosophy of order, right? Not random. Now, though scientists and materials like to pretend like everything's just random, you are all just trying to unrandom things because that's how the human mind works. That is false. Scientists have to have the assumption that things are orderly, not random, or the research would be impossible. Why? Is because they were relying on math, and math is very orderly. If there is no order within math, then you can't rely on the math to get you from the Earth to the moon in a spaceship. You can't rely on the math to tell you about how the galaxy 10 million light years away is moving and operating. These are all relying on math, not on sight, not on vision. Vision is secondary. These telescopes, secondary. Let's go further. So if the pattern space is structured, does that mean it is discoverable like a physical geography? In other words, can we map the abstract realm? Now, if you understand what we've been doing, okay, philosophy of order, you don't have to do this, but an abstract exploration, this is why I like what Michael Levin's doing. That's what it's all about. Can we actually explore the abstract realm? Now, Michael Levin's more concerned with math and patterns to create biological things and to cure cancer, which he's found a cure for cancer using these things. By the way, Michael Levin is not a fringe scientist. He is somebody right now. Anybody should go look him up. He's somebody completely changing the scientific community with what he's talking about. And he's making like it's not like he's like one of the guys, oh, I cured cancer, and he's not really doing it. No, he's actually doing it. So I never will bring to y'all like scientists who aren't respected, because I want you to respect the information that you're receiving. Okay, that's not true. I might sometimes bring you scientists that aren't respected if I really like them. Okay, now let's go into can we map the abstract realm? That's what we're talking about here, right? When you read World War Gods, right? The uh the first half might be filled with a narrative, right? Because I'm into edutainment. But if you go to the back to the abstract history, I'm literally mapping out Yahweh's journey. I'm literally mapping it out. That's what I'm interested in. And I'm using the physical realm as almost like footprints. So when you look at footprints on the earth, I'm not like we don't really see the human who made the footprint or whatever made the dog. But by examining that footprint, I can know the size, the weight, possibly the age, where they were going, if they were tired. Y'all be shocked, the people who study footprints, of everything they can tell you by looking at a footprint and what it meant. Were they running? Were they jogging? Were they panicked? And in that same way, when we're looking at the physical realm, we can use that to map the abstract realm. We can see what's going on. Okay, Yahweh popped up here. What was he? When Yahweh pops up, what happens? What do people start to do? What does that tell us about the collection of attributes that makes Yahweh what it is? And we can begin to kind of start mapping things out. This is what I am interested in when it comes to abstract exploration. You know, the philosophy of order goes in many different directions, but that this is one of the most interesting directions you can go in. In fact, FIMS is a result of that. Okay, so some patterns may behave like proto minds, not human minds, but structures with tendencies. This is according to Michael Levin, or motivations. These could be deeper than biology, showing up in many systems. This challenges our idea that minds must be tied to brains, right? Could cognition exist in a non-physical domain? Now, he has not answered this question. This is a question that I have. You know, I brought this up. Are these spirits conscious? Is pretty much what he's asking. Are these non-physical beings aware? Are they are they processing? Right? Now, if we're just, obviously going off of speculation, we say, yeah, of course, the God spirits, the ancestors are thinking. But can we show this? Can we prove this? Is there any method in which we can demonstrate this? This is what I am interested in. Let me explain how this aligns with spirits or essences. So when he's talking about that, he's talking about a spirit. A spirit is a collection of attributes that make something what it is. And what he's not understanding yet, or at least I can't tell in his work, the answer is obvious to me. He's looking for agency. He's asking the question, can something that's non-physical have agency? My answer is yes, because a pattern, by being that certain pattern, is going to do certain things because that's what it is. Let me explain in a different way. Okay. It's like a stream of water, and this is one of the biggest examples in the philosophy of order. You can shout at water all you want to go in a different direction, but to truly make it move a different direction, you have to change what is traveling through the tunnel. You have to create another route for it, and then it will go a different way. And so that's a structure, that's a form, and the water is going to move based on that form. So if you're looking at the subjectivity of experience as something that it has to go through, one day I'm going to have us watch for homework Westworld. Has anybody seen Westworld here? Oh, so
Mm,
Todd and Jeremy already know. Y'all already know. So, but they're exploring this, right? And I don't know if the script writers knowingly are doing this, but they're trying. They have a structure. It's like a maze. I don't want to spoil anything, but he's trying to figure out that is it going through this maze what causes us to behave the way that we do or become conscious. Now, I would say that that they're coming from a perspective that consciousness emerges out of the physical, where I would say consciousness is what is creating the physical. But the point is that they come to a conclusion that is the way that things are structured that determines how they're going to behave and interact with the world. And so I very much believe that consciousness, since it's not a physical thing, that a non-physical thing can be conscious. And a pattern in itself can be aware, even if it is not in a physical interface. Okay. Hope everybody's remembering their questions. I'm sure people have many. Okay. Since, or statements, comments, since physical systems rely on non-physical patterns like math, a form of dualism is already in physics. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not a dualist, but he is. And I'm going to explain. So, biology also depends on non-physical patterns to create new functions. The speaker, being Michael Levin, extends this to cognition. Minds might be patterns expressing through brains. So, dualism is the idea that reality has two types of stuff, physical and non-physical. I'm not a dualist, and if y'all want to know why, just ask, and I'll go deeper. I don't want to distract us on my reason why I'm not a dualist. Okay. So the speaker says all physical systems, cells, embryos, robots, even AIs are interfaces. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Donald Hoffman. An interface is a structure that lets patterns flow into reality. This means the body or machine is not the source of intelligence, just the portal. Now, some of y'all will be like, duh, we know this is spiritual. But the point is, we're starting to prove this scientifically. This is almost in exact alignment with the philosophy of order. Almost. He says we are the patterns, not the physical stuff. And the philosophy of order says, to be clear with y'all, we are the patterns and we are the physical stuff. You're never going to hear me say that I'm not my physical body. You'll never hear it come from my mouth. I know it's very popular to say in spiritualism, especially Eastern philosophies. I differ there. And if you have questions on that, I can go deeper on that, but I want to make that clear. The philosophy of order is not making a statement that we are the non-physical stuff. Okay? We are both, and the perspective of philosophy of order. So evolution, I ran out of pictures here. I hope y'all like it, my TEDx photo. I ran out of cool pictures for a second. Evolution builds bodies that can use patterns to create abilities like development, problem solving, and adaptation. Biology doesn't just obey patterns, it harnesses them. This explains why living systems show more intelligence than their physical parts suggest. An example of that would be a certain kind of fungi. Can't remember the exact kind of fungi, but we spoke about it before. Scientists were very intrigued about this. How is this thing that doesn't have a brain thinking and moving through a maze, making conscious decisions? It has no brain, it has no neural system. How is it making decisions and thinking consciously? How is it better at getting through a maze than humans are if it has no brain? But if it is a non-physical aspect to its intelligence, then this all makes more sense. Okay. So symbolism and sacred language. Okay, so definitions. Let's go through the definitions here. Xenobots are tiny biological constructs made from frog cells. Anthrobots are similar constructs using human or other cells. Xenobots display behaviors not found in their evolutionary history. This makes them powerful test beds for studying pattern ingress. They may reveal how pattern space expresses itself through physical matter. So to go further, he's taking frog cells and he's changing like their forms. And based on these different archetypal forms that he's giving them, they're performing different duties that are not in their genetic code in their evolutionary history. Okay. Big deal in science, by the way. All right, so symbolism and sacred language. I did that one already. Pattern ingress. So in case you don't know what a pattern ingress is, when I first read it, so I was like, let me define this. A pattern is a design or rule that explains how things behave. Pattern ingress means that a pattern from outside, not from the physical world, enters a physical thing like a cell, a robot, or an animal. The pattern then helps shape what that thing can do. For example, a robot or xenobot might act smarter than it seems because a pattern is coming through it. All right? So some systems seem to exhibit more problem-solving ability than we physically programmed. I'm talking about the Xenobots. This surplus may come from abstract patterns entering through the interface. Researchers want to measure how much extra intelligence comes from pattern space. This is the part I'm talking about, where they're taking things that we discuss in the abstract portion of the philosophy of order and they're demonstrating it through biology, which is extremely intriguing to me. Okay. So this is almost in line with the philosophy of order. Consciousness might be the internal view of a pattern looking outward through a physical interface. This is how I would say it. The philosophy of order would say consciousness allows the eternal view of a pattern, collection of attributes, looking outward through a physical interface. What is the difference between the two statements? Some of you may be wondering. So they're saying consciousness might be the internal view of a pattern looking outward through a physical interface. So in that way, they're saying you are the specific conscious thing looking out through the interface. That is not how, and again, I'm very okay with disagreement. That is not how the philosophy of order operates. And as we build, you'll see why it operates this way. But it would say consciousness allows the eternal view of a pattern. So it allows you to see it. So you would exist whether you're conscious of existing or not. Consciousness allows you the collection of attributes looking outward through a physical inner. It allows you to experience self, to experience spirit. Without it, you'd be like just a robot, I guess. I hope that makes sense. All right. So AI systems might already be allowing pattern ingress, even unintentionally. Machines could display surprising competencies for the same reason Xenobots do. This challenges the idea that intelligence only comes from complexity or evolution. AI is super important. I'm not going to go over it again, but they're growing AI. They don't actually understand AI. They don't really know why it's so intelligent, if I'm being honest with y'all. They kind of understand, like, yeah, we're basing off of this, that, and the third. But if you really talk to them, they don't fully understand them. So when I come back, we're going to cover something called the omniverse. And I'm so excited because I'm just excited about it. I won't give up too much. But the second half of the abstract womb in the realm is the omniverse. All possible outcomes in one omniverse existing all at the same time, metaphysically and physically. Um, think about it, and it's out there. If math can, if the abstract can produce it, like let's just use math. If math can produce a Pokemon world, then there's a Pokemon world. If logic and mathematics can produce a Dragon Ball Z world, there is a Dragon Ball Z world within the Omniverse. So even though the universe might be far from you, it exists within the Omniverse. So yeah, we'll cover that next time. Now it is time for Q&A. Before I get to the Q&A, I want to give the assignment because I keep forgetting sometimes. Um, this assignment is much, much different than normal because I'm not going to be here for like 2 weeks. Okay. Um, so I don't want you simply just going like, what did I take from this? And hmm, let me write it down. I don't really want you doing that exactly. I want you to pick something in the abstract. It could be math. It could be a spirit. It could be some sort of, it could be consciousness. I don't really care what it is. And I want you to do your best to find a way to prove that it exists. After that, I want you to map it. By map it, I'm just going to give you an example. Obviously, you can't use my examples, uh, but the easiest one are numbers. So please don't use like basic numbers. So if I wanted to say, or shapes, if I wanted to say the abstract shape called a sphere is abstract, it exists in the abstract, but I know it's real because without human intervention, things naturally create spheres, like the Earth, like planets, like the sun. The sphere is a natural production of the universe, but it's coming from a fundamental metaphysics sphere, perfect sphere, that they're all coming out of. So that's an example. And we're mapping it and then by mapping it, I just mean look into the universe and see how a sphere comes into being. What conditions brings a sphere naturally into being. So that is the assignment. A little harder than normal, but I think everybody can do it. Um, Before we start with Q&A, Ariel, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Well, how are you?
I'm doing well as well. So this is the philosophy of order course, and so when people try to pop in, I just let them come in. But I do want to let you know that I don't know if you have. Let me know if you did. That to be in here, you have to have started at least reading all four books as far as FAMS, World War Gods, the first book, the second book. You could be in here for this whole course, the Q&A and everything, but I'm just letting you know in the future. This is for the people who have read those collection of books. All right, so let's start with Q&A. By the way, doesn't everybody's here is expected to ask a question or comment um, to contribute to the conversation in some way, somehow. I'm gonna allow everybody to get some time to think while I go and grab some water because I am incredibly thirsty and my tongue is incredibly dry. So I'm gonna go get some water